Are we live, Vishaka?
Just a minute. Yep, we are live now.
Hello everyone. Welcome to another fascinating episode of Builders of Bharat podcast series that we are trying to bring to you. Just a little brief about what this podcast is all about. Builders of Bharat podcast is our own initiative, Recro's initiative, where we speak with leaders from Bharat, from India, who has who are committed to building not only from the tier one cities from India, but also are committed to building from Bharat the real tier two and tier three cities from India, and have a larger role to play in building the tech backbone of the country. Because as a country, we take pride in the tech ecosystem which we have built, and these leaders with their nation first mindset inspires us, and not only just us, but along with us, thousands of our developers, software engineers with their story and their attitude to bring about a positive change in their life. And this podcast specifically is dedicated to empowering a lot of technology professional from every corner of India by showing one of a remarkable journey of one leader who has truly excelled in their life, right? And while I'm talking about excellence and leading a life, a journey of a leader from from being a small developer to now leading a larger team. Uh, Join me in welcoming another visionary leader, Roopasree. Roopasree, she is currently VP engineering at Synchrony, and I was just going through her journey. It really inspires me, and she stands out uh, as a beacon of innovation and excellence in the tech industry, where even though it is dominated by a lot of a lot of male paths, but she has stood there 24 years in the industry with a career that exemplifies dedication, resilience, and obviously some outstanding leadership with her. Rupa, she is also very passionate about leveraging tech to enhance customer experience. She fosters collaboration, mentors team, currently leading a team of around close to 200 developers with her. Uh, and all these collaboration and mentorship is just to make a positive impact, not only on the organization that she's working, but also on the larger society. And in this episode, we'll try to, we'll explore her inspiring stories, uncovering the challenges that she has overcome, the milestones she has achieved, and the invaluable lessons she has learned along the way. So yeah, prepare to be inspired, guys, and motivated, obviously, as we delve deep into the life and career of a true leader who is currently shaping the future of technology in India. So again, it's an honor, Rupashe. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Any opening comments before we, delve deep into your journey of being a leader?
You, I think Vikram is doing a wonderful job building this kind of content, which will not only inspire our aspiring engineers, or also at least gives them a direction in terms of how can they build their career. I'm honored and humbled to be here, and whatever I can share from my career journey and the experience that I have in the last 24 years, I'll be more than happy to share with the team.
Yeah, I think we were talking before the podcast started. The 24 year and 24 hours seems to be
I know.
a common trend, but the journey is like this, right, Rupashi? Even though it's a 24-year journey, but it feels so fresh. It feels that yes, it's getting started, and there are a lot of avenues that we have, and obviously you as a leader have to touch upon. So we'll touch the 24-year and obviously the 24 hours part of your life as well. Just to get started, want to understand, how was your childhood? How was things when you were growing up? What was your earlier inclination, towards not only technology specific, but what while you were growing up, what made you, traverse this path of technology? So just brief me, or tell the audience about the upbringing, the childhood you had, questions.
Sure. I mean, if I go back to my childhood, like anybody else in India, I grew up in a middle class family, right? Mostly my upbringing was around the rural side of India because my dad was in a government transferable job. He was in the Karnataka Electricity Board, and then unfortunately for him, they used to post him to rural areas where it was difficult to kind of manage electricity, and apparently he was one of the best who could manage.
Mhm.
So. For us, it was all in the rural side of Karnataka mostly, and then I think that shaped my character, right? What I am today, and then it grounded me, and it actually inspired to aspire more. Because when you have limited resources, that's when you start aspiring for more better things in life. All I knew is I wanted to be a better version of myself where I was, and then I was very stubborn as a child, very focused. And then I always knew what I need to be better, right? From where I stand. So that was a bit on my childhood journey, though, of course, there were a lot of ups and downs in terms of education. And, of course, till my 10th grade, it was all in the vernacular medium because of scarcity of educational institutes across rural side of our India. But then that did not stop my father inspiring us to, pick up education as a main tool for growth.
Wow.
Right. So my parents always said that is the only tool that you can utilize to, aspire whatever you want to. So we kind of stuck on to that. I didn't know that I want to be a technologist to begin with, but all I knew is my dad was a technologist. He was in
Wow.
the electricity board, and then, so I knew resistors to capacitors to circuit board, and then winding a motor, repairing a transformer, AC to DC. So at a very, very engaged because he used to do a lot, right? So he was the only one who could repair a transformer in his district area. So he used to go. So a lot of that paperwork, a lot of that technology I knew as a child. So that was easy for me, right? Relating to technology was very easy because day in and day out, I used to listen to that, right? So probably that was one inclination where when I was posed with the options of engineering or medicine. Medicine,
Mhm.
of course, I did not get into colleges that I wanted, though I was very, very keen. But engineering felt relatable to me, right? Okay, this is something I always seen, right? So I picked it up,
Mhm.
not in any particular aspiration because it's easy and relatable, and
Mhm.
somehow it was very comfortable for me,
Wow.
right? So that's when I picked up a technology journey. I didn't know it will take me to a world where it was new during my time. And then, of course, 24 years, I'm in IT technology.
Absolutely amazing. I think it's like a story that every we have been speaking to a lot of readers, and as I was we were talking before the podcast started, that this is the story that almost all the leaders have, right? But there are common themes to these stories, right? One, that you always chase excellence at whatever you are trying to do, be it medicine, be it engineering, or be it any field that you choose, but always chase doing excellent work there. And this the the just chasing of excellence is stemming from the fact that we have seen our parents do that, right? Day in and day out, doing a very similar kind of work, but ensuring that whatever work was being there, they have done to the best of their capability and capacity, right? So this is one thing, and absolutely agree when we see education as something that has that's the only tool that we had in upbringing, upliftment of our lives, right? We did not have any other tools, right? And there's an amazing there's a book called The World is Flat. I hope it's a very old book. I think almost like 2 decades now, where uh, the author was talking to Nandan Nilekani, who was then the chief of Infosys, that what makes India such a huge talent ecosystem where people are relying, or for offshoring purposes at that time, right? Why people are so much reliant about it, right? and why everyone is so much aware about and educated, right? So
Yeah.
he mentioned that, in India, education is something that the parents will skip meals, but they will not, they will not skip their student not going to school. They'll have to, obviously skip meals to send the kids to schools, right? So this is where, the preference to education over meals, and that's why I think, as a country, we are fortunate enough to have that, legacy and have that mindset to us, right? It just will continue a journey. I will not stop you, Rupashri, from engineering. While you are doing engineering, because obviously I'm also electronics and communication engineer. I understand. I'm not doing a bit of what I learned during my electronics and communication engineering, but there is a mindset that created while you are doing engineering. A lot of, we call it the jugaad ways, we call it the last minute study ways. A lot of these mindset get developed, right? So while you were graduating from engineering college, what was these mindset changes when you look back right now? What are the shift that happened while you were, just graduating out of engineering college, Rupashri?
So I graduated in 1998. I think most of the kids who are listening to this, I'm sure they're not even born at that time. Very daunting because not a lot of job opportunities were there in terms of technology at that point in time, right? So IT was just coming up. Very few companies who could come to campus for recruitment. Not a lot of direction in terms of how do we build our career, right? I had no clue. I knew electronics and communication, as I said, computer was upcoming field. I didn't know what shape that's going to take, so I did not take that. Electronics and communication, because it's very relatable and I'm very comfortable with the terminologies and what it does in terms of day-to-day life. So I thought I will become an electronics engineer, right? Maybe I'll go to Philips or Siemens or maybe appliances company where I can go either design circuits or design products, and then I can get into that. I didn't know anything about technology, right? IT industry. There was no one to guide us. Very daunting. So I knew I had to begin somewhere, right? So I thought I will get into this new fancy world, which everybody was attracted, and then I wanted to really try my hand. So I started learning the skill by registering myself to these institutes. Back in the days, there were aptechs, NIITs. So I
Nice.
don't know. Yeah, it's a lot of people are not even heard of them now. So they were the only means for us to learn because internet was not that matured, right? So there was no widely available communities in our industries where we could go learn. So those institutes were the only means for us to kind of learn.
Mm,
So what I did, I registered myself to learn, and on the side by side, I started working with an NGO. Nothing related to my engineering.
mhm,
But I think what engineering did, it just gives you that mindset to be resilient, right? Mindset to kind of focus on what is really required from the growth standpoint, though we don't use a lot of stuff from a technology standpoint, but it gives you a base and the confidence, right? As long as we can utilize that well in terms of knowledge. So electronics and communication help me in understanding the computer hardware,
right.
right? So I know exactly how circuits will work in terms of the CPUs to arithmetic logical units to everything else.
Yeah.
So that helped me to kind of understand to design our applications better. Right. So when I started my career in 2000, not a lot of abstracting used to happen from a application development because you used to write the system code, driver code, and then, so even C++ that you used to write, you have to manage memory allocations and then disposal, everything, right? So it needed that hardware understanding of it, right? How many bits and then how many CPUs and then how can you manage that without having the errors? So for me, electronics and communication gave me that base,
Mhm,
right? So that's where, that is the mindset, though it was very daunting first 2 years where I have to
mhm,
learn the skill and then get into the industry. But then I
mhm,
knew because engineering gave me that confidence that I know computers, not
mm,
from a software standpoint, but a hardware standpoint.
mm,
So that was my confidence to kind of get into it. And then, of course, I started my career in 2000 as a web developer and a designer.
Mm.
And it took off from there, you know. So
Yeah, so let's carry on, Rupashi. I think obviously that transition from electronics and communication is now purely in web development, where and that was a time of dot-com bubble, right? It was kind of growing hugely in the West, and there were a lot of repercussions that were happening in India, right? So it
yeah.
was, I think, a very those were uncertain times, as we as we're witnessing currently also, right? Lot of similarity in patterns that every say 10-12 years you see. There's dot-com bubble burst, then there's a Great Depression happened, then now the advent of AI and everything is coming. So every there's a pattern, right? And from these patterns there are always lessons to be learned, right? That there are two different skill set that you'll obviously have to have with you. One is, there are the survival skill set, which are like technical skill set, which will help you in understanding, working, and obviously the larger skill set is how do you thrive in that, right? What is your mindset? How do you cater to problem solving? And that's why I think engineering, for me, engineering gave me the aptitude to solve problems, right? Be it anything, right? Be it it's a coding problem, it's a business problem. So it gave us a mindset to that, right? But while you were in your career earlier, like first 2 years, 3 years, I am sure there must be huge challenges that you face, because one, the times were uncertain, and secondly, not a lot of exposure was there, or not a lot of awareness was there where to go. Unlike in today's world, there are still a lot of direction people have, right? So how was it where you were in your early career, Rupashri? How was that journey while you're
Yeah,
facing
I think the
challenges?
market size was very small back in those days, right? In India, as I said, not a lot of companies were there to explore as software engineer, or even to kind of explore multiple options as roles. And of course, the recession and brain drain of India, where people were migrating to US, was happening a lot, and very confusing times, to be very frank, because none of us knew how to. We landed in a job, but I don't know what next,
Mm,
right? How to grow our career, and then we never had Google.
mm,
Back in those days, to learn anything, even to know whether is my coding correct,
mm,
right? Is my code going to work, right? So all we had is books, a few people who have already done that and solved some of these problems, where we can go meet them and learn from them, right? Those were the only two options that we had. And there was no defined career paths,
mm.
right? So not a lot guidance was available, or even companies were figuring out from a
Right.
software engineer to senior software engineer, what are the career journeys that people can make, right? So we were doing as industry was growing, right?
Mm,
The designations and roles evolved as the industry grew. More and more companies started coming in. We looked at West, what they were doing in their companies, and what is the career, what is the learning itself, right? So I had no clue. So my first company, I was there for 3 years. In those 3 years, all I knew is I wanted to learn,
mm,
right? I wanted to develop good portals, websites, and then using whatever technology that we were using back in the days, either Java or .NET, which were in initial stage of their versioning. So that is all my focus was, but I did not know that I want to grow,
mm,
right? I didn't know what is next, whether that company is going to sustain or not. We had no clue about how the capital is coming, what is the profit margin that company is making, how these products are going to impact the lives of the others, right? Though it was a startup. So that was the phase that we were in. But I think as the industry grew, we started to learn along with that, right? Internet started maturing a bit, and then we started having communities on the internet where
mm,
people started, coming together for learning. So very confusing days, right? We didn't know better how to grow,
mm.
lack of the better word. But then yes, we matured with the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think these after like say, 2003, 4, 5, these were the times where uh, things started consolidating from an industry perspective. A lot of things were obviously still these were not
Yeah.
highly certain or clear times, right? But still, there's a lot of consultation happening with few bigger companies that were shaping up at that point of time, showing the way, yeah, this is a sustainable career, right? And
Correct.
what were your thoughts while, obviously from being a, say, an individual contributor in developing, website and designing websites, right? Now, 3 4 years later down the line, you become a lead engineer, and now you are in mid of your career, right? And because things started falling one by one, right? And it was not a very absolute conscious call to do specific things, right? But it like a jigsaw puzzle, it started fitting in one by one, right? So what was going through your mind? How was the atmosphere or environment there when you were in mid of a career in a lead engineering, obviously leading few people, doing your work as well, right? So how was those times, Rupashri, where you were in mid of the career and still, there are a lot of things to explore?
I think by 2004, 2005, India market started to expand from a IT standpoint. A lot of companies started coming in. Of course, initially because labor cost, because it's kindly, I mean, they used to kind of look at arbitraging, the cost of the labor to develop because we had the technical talent. But we started maturing as an industry, right? And we had a fair idea how our growth path is going to be by then, right? Then industry started looking at mentoring and coaching the technologist to grow more, and companies started realizing, we need to grow the talent.
Yeah.
Right. So we can't really let good talent go out and then, waste that. And then, but internally, how can we kind of sustain that and grow them? That's where your learning and development department started coming in, right? That's where people started doing the conferences and then seminars and then you know um, course curriculum within the company itself to kind of grow that. So we had a fair idea by then, the growth path, the roles that we can take up, the different domains that started coming in, because when we talk about software engineering, it is not just the technology skills that we're talking about. It's not just C, C++ or a .NET or a Java or any other technology, but it's also the domain, right?
Mm.
So be it oil and energy, gas, or a banking domain, or a healthcare domain, or even logistical domain. So there was so many domains started coming in. So we started to realize not just technology that we have to learn, we also have to learn domain,
Mm.
right? Otherwise, applicability of the technology uh, became irrelevant when you just talk technology,
Right. Right.
right? As a lead engineer, when I was heading a team for a CRM, right, when we were developing a module, so I should be able to explain how this module is going to impact the end customer and how it is going to drive the organizational value or a growth.
Right.
So instead of me just talking about, what, I developed this using Java, .NET, C, C++, and then, uh, that did not have relevance during that time. We had to combine both and talk about it.
Mm.
So I think that opened up our mindset,
Mm.
right? So how can we build our career knowing both domain and technology, not just technology? And then we started connecting, networking with the people in our friend circle, or through it's not a lot of social media was there,
Mm.
conferences, seminars
Mm.
that we used to catch up because of the domains that we were in.
Mm.
So we started having those discussions, how is this domain is going to grow, right? So what kind of innovations, or what kind of products that we are going to start seeing in these industries. I think by the time I became lead engineer, I think I had a very good idea in terms of how I want to shape my career,
Mm.
right? What domains that I want to kind of get an experience with, and then people that I wanted to connect. But learning never stopped,
Mm.
right? So you have to keep learning your skills, you have to keep learning the technology, and even the soft skills. But yeah, I think tech industry started to shape up
Yeah.
pretty well during that time.
Yeah. I think this was the time where IT as a uh, department started to move from just being a cost center to how it
Yes, profit
add
center.
value to the business. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not just a department where, people are just, for desktops and up. They were actually business value that were created through developing some amazing products and application. And this was the time where, uh, India was again started seeing not just as a labor arbitrage or a cost arbitrage where, for cheaper labor and a, that started little bit. Obviously, it was still there. A larger portion of our tech ecosystem was a service industry where we were developing products for US banks, oil and gas companies, right? Uh, but we started becoming a global player, right? We were not just restricted to a fewer smaller entities, right? And that's where I think, Rupasha, you also were, you were part, you have seen this journey, with your eyes from smaller few people team lead engineer now, and all along your career you have been associated with global teams, right? So how was this experience where, uh, you know uh, from becoming, say, a cost center, you become absolutely a business center, a profit center, revenue center, right? And the perception changed, right? So how was your experience? What was some learnings that you acquired while managing global teams?
So just to add to the previous discussion, right? So I mean, now we see a lot of startup boom, right, in the industry, but then not a lot of people would know there was a lot of startup started back in 2000 as well. My first two companies were startup in India. So that's how I learned the business. So I didn't work for a Fortune 500 company or a multinational to begin with, but then it was started with the intention of developing the products. So one is for Indian market, and another one is, of course, absolutely a product which is a competitive to Microsoft products. And then, we did very well, and then we took it to Shell, oil and gas, and all of it. So two startups really shaped the way I think about business, and then profit margins to impact to customer. And then I've sat in customer calls in that journey in less than 5 years experience in the industry, but I was fortunate to kind of connect with the customer to understand, right? So I think that kind of shaped up to kind of take up much more bigger roles in a multinational company, right? So we
Hmm.
always had startup. India always had startups, right? So people were driven to kind of develop some great products. Of course, some of the products were very advanced for their time. I wish they were there
Mhm.
now and they would have done really well. But some of them are maybe lost the relevance from my industry standpoint. But then, yeah, so my initial career from a startup picked up that to in a multinational company. Leading big teams in a global setup, especially when I transitioned to an architect, right? So as a from a lead engineer to an architect. Of course, a lot of learning in terms of how we look at global teams,
Mhm.
right? One, of course, the big learning is communication, right? How well are you communicating with your global teams, right? So even if it is a size of 15 to 30 people that you have, but you're developing a blueprint of an application, right? You're developing a design for an application, but then if your communication is not clear across the globe, people are not going to understand, right? So it is a bigger part of any role, right? Whether you're a software engineer or you're a CEO of the company, communication is the key. So that is the biggest learning that I had in terms of running some of these global teams, right? Trust and delegation. If you don't trust your team, you will not be able to deliver. And of course, you cannot do everything. So you got to delegate. So that's where your trust and delegation comes into play. And then mentoring and coaching your teams. You may not see everybody at the same level, but then how do you make sure your vision is understood, your application design is understood, and how it is going to impact the customer, the business is understood among everybody,
Hmm.
right? They may be in different roles, different stage of their career, but then how are you going to make sure you communicate well and it is understandable by everybody? So
Hmm.
that's where your trust and delegation comes into picture. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry for that.
No problem, no problem.
The third, I think. the biggest learning is how do you build your teams, right? Across the
Hmm.
globe, so maybe a designer, your UX designer is sitting in US, but your coder is sitting in India, right? How are you going to make
Hmm.
sure those two work together, right? So that is the team building that you'll have to do, even if you're an architect, even if
Right.
you're an individual contributor, right? When you go to an architect role is as good as a leadership role because you're actually designing a product, designing a solution to the company that needs to be delivered by a set of people. It itself is a leadership, right? We always often think, okay, if I'm an architect, I don't have to deal with teams. But
Right.
then, on the contrary, you have to deal with the teams, right? You have to develop them. You have to make sure they work together. You have to make sure they understand your vision, right? And they deliver to it. The same, right? Asking for help, right? As an architect, you can't deliver everything. So if you don't know or if you're stuck, you need to ask for help. And then you need to create that network of people within the company, outside the company, where you can ask for help. And then you don't hesitate to ask for help.
Hmm. Yeah.
So as I said, we don't know everything.
Yeah.
Um, Understanding customers and stakeholders, because when you're designing, some of these for a particular market or particular customers, you got to understand the domain, not just technology. So architect has a bigger role, how they design the product, and they have to absolutely understand the market
Yeah.
and stakeholders. Of course, understanding organizations with vision, technology and tools. So I feel architect job is more tougher than any leadership job because they got to kind of have the flavors of everything when they have
Yeah.
to design
A
it.
lot of that. Yeah.
Yes, some of those learnings, but then they were good learnings.
Mm. When you were speaking about this, Rupasha, you mentioned that a lot of mentorship and coaching was needed, and obviously you enjoy doing that, right? And obviously everyone is trying to build the best teams, right? High impact teams, super teams, 10x teams. These are the buzzword that is coming up these days, right? So everyone is trying to build such teams because uh, this is where the real delivery happens, right? If you are building a subpar team, then obviously your product will suffer and ultimately your customers will suffer, right? uh, so what and you have built certain amazing teams, right? So have you found, is there a pattern in building a very strong high impact high performance team, or it is still very basic that has you know been there since ages, right? Strong, you mentioned like trust, delegation, all. Is there a pattern? Is there a blueprint that you see that has worked really well for you while you were building such a high performance team?
I think the basic sense, there's already a lot of material and literature available on how to build high performing teams, right? But I always believe in my personal experience, it boils down to the human beings we are, right? How good a leader are you to kind of make sure you steer the entire team towards the single goal, vision, mission of the company, culture, and laying down certain understanding from a team perspective will help you to kind of drive high performing teams, right? I mean, of course, we all are aware of forming, storming, norming, and performing because
Yeah.
anytime when two people come together, there are always initial, differences and understanding, and then how do you overcome that to kind of have the similar conversation? That is a basic principle, right? But then everything else after that is about culture,
Mm.
right? As a leader, are you able to foster a culture of communication, innovation, and collaboration? Because that is going to lay a foundation for a high performing team.
Mm.
Right. And then as a leader, are you able to kind of provide mentoring and coaching for the team whenever, wherever it is required? Right. As a team, are you able to develop complementing skills? Because as I said, you cannot have every skill in your team. But then if you know the vision or, the value that you want to deliver to the organization, are you able to develop the skills within the team where everybody will become part of that high performing conversation, right? And as a leader, are you able to provide that feedback without hesitation?
Mm.
Right. As I said, not everybody will be at the same performance level, but then when you see a gap, when you see something not going right, are you a leader who will go and provide that feedback, along with feedback help as well?
Absolutely.
Not
Yeah.
just saying you're not doing well, but then at the same time, where are you not doing well? What do you need? What is the support system that you need to kind of do well, right? So lot goes in before we say high performing and a blueprint, but in a general sense, when you talk about culture, when you talk about help, when you talk about learning, right, that needs to happen, providing timely feedback, and fostering collaboration, right?
Yeah.
See, this becomes easy when you have a co-located team, right? So when you have a team that is there in the same location, becomes easy, but then much more challenging when you have people distributed across the globe. So that would additionally would require time zone management, because you need to see an appropriate time where everybody is available. Cultural sensitivity, because every country's culture is very different. How do you bring in that sensitivity, right? And fostering that diversified skills that you have, right? So the diversity and inclusion becomes a part of your culture. So lot many layers will get added when teams are distributed,
Mm.
right? Along with just looking at technology as a lever, you can probably have that done across the globe with the session, with the learning tool, or with the instruction. How do we kind of do that? But then the rest of it is
Mm.
all mindset, right? How are you going to bring in very diverse talent
Mm.
to a single goal or a vision, right? So that sometimes takes a lot of your bandwidth in terms of fostering that. But I think that is required for an organization to deliver more,
Right.
right? If we don't do that well to begin with, you will not be developing a high performing teams. Right,
Absolutely.
leaders have to spend time in looking at, do we have the right mindset
Mm.
along with the skills that we need both in the leadership and technology? And are we all working towards the same thing? I mean, it's okay to disagree, right? So you all are agreeing to disagree.
Yeah.
It's okay to have conflict, but then how are you going to kind of foster that, right? So without any negative thoughts in people's minds. So it becomes very important in developing a high performing team.
But I think that creating a persuasive environment is very necessary, right? And obviously, a lot of companies' culture, the leadership culture, how the leadership is, functioning, that will drive how the environment or the ecosystem is built. But on this note, Rupashi, I just want to kind of have a suggestion for from your end for a young engineer, say 2 years experience, years experience, who want to be a part of a high impact team, right? Because we are discussing at length that what a high impact team entails, right? What are the characteristics of high impact team, right? But from an individual perspective, what these guys should have in them, so that whenever so they are part of these teams, they can be reassured that my skills are there, my mindset is there, right? So what are your suggestion to, say, a very young fresher, or say a couple of years experience, entering or want to enter into such high impact teams? Just like two three moot points for them, so that they can have an idea about what these teams should have, right, from their perspective. Yeah.
If a fresher just out of college, I think they should take time to decide their career options, first of all, right? Before even thinking about, I want to be part of any organization or any company, they want to start on their own. Of course, people who have a couple of years experience, I would say first hone your skills, what you know absolutely well, right? So if you know technology vertical or technology skill, absolutely know in and out, 100% that you're very confident about how this technology is applied, nuances of it, and then, so what are the use cases, how it is solving the problem. You should absolutely know that. That is a basic, right? So you cannot enter any organization without knowing that. You can't just know at a superficial level, right?
Mm.
When you say on your resume, you know a technology, you have to know 100%.
Right.
So at the depth of it, right? So that is one suggestion. Second, communication, because though you know your technology, if you cannot articulate that to anyone, it's of no use. right? So communication in this age becomes a critical tool for anybody to enter organizations, because we do look at not just technology, but how well are you able to articulate and present yourself in the room of people, or to the customer, or to the business. So you're not just going to stay in that role, right? You're going to grow. Communication is another tool, absolutely, which drives that, getting into a high performing team. Third is domain skills. So along with the technology, you should be able to articulate the domains that you've worked already, if you have an experience with, how your technology is able to make a difference in the domain, and how that the domain is operating, or, what are the new things that are happening in the domain. In fintech, if I talk about the payments innovation that's happening, right? How, say for example, India is innovating in the payment industry, right? How others are doing. So I think you need to bring in the essence of both technology and domain, along with the communication, absolute skills, right? It's non-negotiable. So apart from that, if you can really read about anywhere you're going, or applying to an organization, about the organization itself,
Mm, mm,
right? What kind of culture to begin with? What is their vision, right? I'm sure every organization has a vision to set out with, and then what kind of products are they into, innovation they are into, if you can talk about that, right? So it kind of brings in an element of innovation in you, saying not only you are able to talk about the work that you've done, but then you are able to actually articulate the company that you're looking at, so the industry they are in, and so all that together will take you to the door of
mm,
any company, right? In terms of your interviews, in terms of your, what do you say, the probability of getting into a high performing team. And then once you are into that, you have to have an open mind,
mm.
right? We cannot really sit on a horse and then say, you know what, I know everything. You realize how little you know when you get into a lot of these teams, because teams have done a lot already, right? So you need to have an open mind to absorb anything that's happening around. You need to have an open mind when people give you feedback. You should be able to accept it and then implement it. And you need to ask for help where it is required. And then, never stop learning. So I think those things will mold you to become a part of the high performing team. Of course, you learn a lot on the job. We're not saying everybody will know everything, but then at least that mindset to say that I'm willing to go through it, whatever it takes from me, and then I'm willing to learn by looking at others with feedback. I will get a mentor and a coach to kind of elevate myself. All that will help
Mm.
in terms of looking at the career for
Yeah.
any aspiring engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched a very relevant point. I think when I was starting up my career, uh, uh, there was one, we used to have one coach used to give us half an hour every week, right? And these were like very early days, like we're just getting trained on particular technologies, right? For 6 months of our experience of our career, right? And he mentioned, you know, you will get selected in a company based on your technical skill set, or how well versed you are about technology and other things, right? Related to the company, right? But you will survive based on your mindset and behavioral skills within the company, because it's like a ticket that you have spent entering the company, but that will be of little use while you are thriving in the current company, right? And you aptly put when you said that, these two are two different skill set that you learn, and you approach a company, you get interviewed, give interviews, right? And then other skill is sustaining, being a part of that thriving high performance team. That is a complete mindset game where openness, uh, your your proclivity to say yes and say no to a lot of things which you don't know, and accept constructive criticism, right? So these are the key terms that I think, because when we are also hiring a lot of folks, we tend to get a lot of very strong, technically competent folks, but obviously when it comes to the behavioral part of it, the articulation part of it, right? That also sometimes play a very key role in developing a team, right? And actually put, I think Rupesh is very nicely. But I hope whosoever is listening to this podcast has taken notes on these, because these are skill set, or these are things that we keep on repeating, and these are not uh, governed by AI, or these are not things that are, because this will be with you forever, right? Any AI or non-AI will not be replacing your mindset or your attitude, right? So yeah, so
Just
we'll
want
move
to
to
add
our
to,
oh,
sorry,
yeah,
Amit, I
please go
just
ahead.
want
Yeah,
to add, because if this is catering to tier two and tier three cities as well, and if people are not really from a background of English teaching institutes, right, for in their early education, I think they'll have to put a little more effort in terms of learning the language, because it's very critical when they come to bigger organization and they want to kind of build a career. So if they can start investing some of their time in learning the language itself, I mean, maybe initially it feels like it is not important. It feels like it is not relevant, but then trust me, when you start growing in the career and then you want to take your career to the next level, to a leadership, or even as a technologist at an architect level or an enterprise architect, this is a tool, right? This is a tool which is must have at the organization to articulate your vision to people, right? So I can tell you, because I did my studies till 10th grade in a vernacular language. It is difficult, but then what helped me is constantly reading, constantly watching television, and then constantly looking at how can I improvise
right.
grammatically, or constructing the language. By the time you come to engineering, at least your confidence in terms of putting your thoughts across, right? So my only request, people from tier 2 tier 3, in case if you do not have that kind of a background, to start investing that as a skill, right? Not really looked at as a optional. I'm okay if I know technology and I can grow, but then if you're really looking at a career in a multinational organization, this is an important tool that you all have to develop.
Yep, yep, rightly put. And I think it's a highly competitive world, right? We are not just competing with people from your city. We are competing with global, you know, uh, global candidates, global players, right? So when the competition is so tough and so stiff, people will always pick the best for them, right? And sometimes communication is the only tiebreaker, as we discussed earlier. That communication is the only tiebreaker apart from the technical competencies, right? Because it's communication, how well you are articulating will make a lot of difference, right? Who is a good candidate or who is a bad candidate, right? Yeah, fantastic. We'll quickly move to a fun session. I think it's a rapid fire kind of a round where few options, quick questions, need not think much. Yeah, I think I have 5, 6 questions with me. We'll quickly go through them. So we'll get started, Rupasha, on the rapid fire round. Okay. Yeah, Jackie, so very good question. Tea or coffee? Yeah. Um,
Really do.
your favorite tech gadget?
Phone. I'm not into a lot of gadgets, but then the phone is one that I carry everywhere.
I was expecting a transformer from you.
Oh, that when I sit with my dad, of course, so we have a lot of gadgets at home. Yeah.
So, one book that has really influenced you the most, while you're growing up or recently.
I think more than a book, author Ayn Rand, At Last Tracked and Fountainhead, absolute favorites. And then I think I must have read 4 or 5 times. And even now, when I feel I'm forgetting or I feel I need help, so those are the two books that I go to.
Amazing, amazing. Uh, your go-to stress relief activity that you always do whenever you are feeling under pump, you just want to relieve yourself. What are those activities that you do?
I do a lot of pottery, ceramics and pottery.
Wow.
And then I'm also a certified personal care formulator. I'm a chemist, basically. I have a lab at home.
Wow.
So that is my stress buster, because I also want to tell aspiring engineers, you know what, when your career becomes difficult, you need to invest time in your hobbies.
Right.
right?
Right. Absolutely.
So that will give you a lot of confidence and positivity. So I intentionally done professional level in my hobbies as well, because I take a lot of pride in that, because chemistry was my favorite subject, and pottery and formulation all based on chemistry. I kind of continued in that journey, and that is my go-to stress buster any day. So Saturday, Sunday, you find me in the lab. So yeah.
Wow, wow. One piece of advice that you give you to your younger self.
I don't know if I want to change anything, but then I was very interested in research and development, right? So I didn't know quite a lot back then. I wish I did enough research to understand what are those options available. I think that's the only part that I regret, but then other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, one last question. That is a surprise one for you. If you
Mhm.
have to, if there's a book written by you, an autobiography, what will be
Mhm.
the title of this autobiography?
Easy, life goes on, you know.
I was expecting 24 hours and 24 years.
No, I'm a great believer. Like, the career is just a part of you, right? There's more to you than just career,
Yeah.
which probably all of us will realize after some time into the career.
Mhm.
But yeah, so life goes on will be my book title.
Awesome, awesome. I'll just kind of pick up
Mhm.
the uh, on the pottery hobby, Rupashu, because that's fascinating. And obviously, it's important to understand that, apart from uh, because a lot of young people are listening to this. Good to have. What are the advantages of having some hobbies, right? And this is just not purely a relief buster or a stress buster, right?
Yeah,
There are a lot of, how does it shape your mind and shape your attitude, that also plays an important role, right? So just
correct.
want to pick your brains on, what hobbies, what role these hobbies play in your corporate life, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, in a long journey of 24 years, right? So not just successes that you see, there's a lot of failures, right? That actually defines what kind of character you bring into a career, right? So the moments of failures and then the moments of doubt that anybody has, you need something to hold on to as a positive things, right? So pottery and formulation is that for me, right? It brings a lot of confidence and positivity because it is something that I'm creating from my hand in a pottery, and something that I'm creating based on my scientific knowledge in a formulation which goes into our personal care products. um, so you bring in that energy to your career. So
Hmm.
basically, if you really need to unwind and then just kind of look at bring in a fresh perspective or problem that you're facing in a career, just by being in the problem, you will not be able to solve. So sometimes you need to step aside, right, to kind of look at from a third observer standpoint. So that actually my hobby lets me have that, right? If I'm a potter, how do I look at the problem, right? If I'm
Hmm.
a formulator, how do I look at the problem? So it just gives me a different perspective to it, and sometimes just taking a step back,
Hmm.
right? So as I said, in a long career journey, there are a lot of ups and downs, and then in a role that you take up, and sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to be, or the project doesn't shape up the way you want it to be. A lot of challenges could be because of your leadership, could be because of your organizational limitations, could be because not a lot of money available to deliver that, resource issues, 100 other things, right? Hobbies really helps me to kind of think through those problems, bring in innovative solution to there, right? So there are a lot of times I've taken a step back from the problem, and then we started from scratch, right? There are a lot of times that as a observer, if I have to see that problem, there are different solutions to it, right? Hobbies are not just because you want to unwind, it is also because you want to solve a certain problem in a way that will you see fit and benefit the organization as well. And you draw a lot of positivity. I call them as positive distractions.
Hmm.
You
Wow.
need to create those distractions in your life to be able to solve something better, right? So and then of course it just gives me peace of mind, calmness, and then focus. You need to shape a pot, right? You need to shape things when it is on the wheel, on the pottery wheel. It requires a lot of skill. And then, when you're focusing on that, there are times you forget your career problems. When you forget that, when you try remembering, it gives you a fresh perspective. There's a lot of advantage. As I said, hobbies are not bad. Trust me, hobbies will give you a different perspective to your career. I think it adds a depth to that character you can bring in, right? So yeah, I hold on to them very, very near and dear to me.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I think, uh, you know, whenever, so I went to sports and all, right? So whenever I'm playing sports, right? So I get so much engrossed that I feel, forget the time that is there, and uh, it feels like I'm just spent 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but actually, eventually, it's like 2 hours, 3 hours, right? So you get into a zone of doing something, right? And if you can replicate the same zone, people call it the flow state, you
Yeah.
know. So if you can, because these flow states are developed in your mind, in your brain, because you are doing with huge intent, with a lot of, guts. So, and you want to complete this. There is no outcome or there is no anything attached to it. You're just doing for the sake of it, right? And you, when you're replicating the same thing, same kind of focus, same level of intent in your and it will be easier for you because you've already done that in your hobbies and the things you like to do, right? So I'm thanks for sharing. I really wanted to kind of pick your brains on that because this is a very critical and important thing. I mean, people may not take it very seriously, but yeah, it's a very useful thing for anyone who's growing. Obviously, have something to hold on to for your
If
support.
not anything, if you do any hobby at a professional level, you have another job, right? So
Yeah,
that's a plan B to your entire career. So think
absolutely.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree more. Yeah. Uh, so Rupashri, also while we were interacting, we also got to know that you have been an active supporter of Skill India initiative, right? And you have seen the entire journey of tech sector now, right? And obviously you are also associated with a lot of these domains and sectors, right? So, what are the some sectors where you see great upside of employability or jobs being created in the near future? What are those areas where you feel the budding engineers who are graduating or who are seeking opportunities there? Where should they try to focus themselves on? So, what are the sectors, Rupashi, in your opinion?
So if you look at all the trends and if you hear all the visionaries talking about the next set of things that are going to make a difference to the world, agri-tech, right? So there is a lot of innovation is happening in the agricultural sector, which was neglected in the last decade or so because people never felt the need to kind of go back and take that as a career. But then now there's a lot of innovation that has happened in the agricultural sector. That's one of the domain that will grow more in the agri-tech. So people can look at that. And very recently, I was listening to a podcast on gaming, how gaming is going to take over a lot of the domains that we have seen because so the survey says that the youngsters 40% of their time they spend on social media, right? So they're not seeing TV, they're not seeing cricket, but then they are spending their time on social media and games. So there is a lack of game developers in India at least, and not a lot of companies have invested in gaming as a domain. I think that's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. Gaming as a profession, right? So I think that's going to come in very soon. Third, what the world is dealing with, renewable energy sector, sustainability sector, a lot of innovation is happening in terms of sustainability and renewable energy, environmental issues. I think that's the next big thing as well. And of course, healthcare never goes out of fashion. Even if you innovate, I think there's a more innovation coming in terms of how can we manage healthcare, fintech, digital footprint of money. I think that's going to change the shape of the world. And then, of course, all we have talked about AI, ML, and robotics, how they're going to change a lot of these things. Of course, some of The others are logistics and e-commerce because now people want to sit at home and everything to be delivered. I think that's going to change. And entertainment and media. I think these are some of the sectors I feel they're going to really grow well in the coming years.
Yeah, and a lot of these sectors, are coming back, right? Agri-tech was, I remember it was a lot of investment happened maybe like 10 years back.
Yeah.
Now manufacturing, the semiconductor industry is booming
Yes.
in a way, and the compute power, with advent of AI and all, everybody is putting their money in that. Where do the compute power will come from, right? So
Yeah.
companies like Nvidia, you know, AMD and all these guys are putting a lot of effort in, the developing the compute layer of AI, right? So yeah, I think fantastic. I think we are almost on dot, but I have few questions which has come up from the audience.
Right.
Uh, I will just put it to you. Uh, what are the tech stacks that you see will be beneficial to pick up in near future? So from domain, obviously domain is something that we just discussed. What are the areas? Is there a specific tech stack that you feel will be crucial in next year or two, Pashi?
I think with Gen AI coming in has opened up a lot more opportunities, right? Large language modules, and then I think that's going to be the next big thing. Anybody coming in, they will see use cases of that applied in the industry, and then of course a lot of companies are dedicating, innovation teams and teams which are looking at Gen AI tech stacks, right? That is one thing I want people to kind of start learning and start looking at how Gen AI is going to change the shape of the industry.
Mhm,
So and then of course, AI, ML, at a basic sense, how it is applied
mhm,
to the industry, be it a fintech, be it any other domain. I think that is going to be another one. Full stack developer, for example, right? UX
yep.
is one of the thing that is advanced pretty well because as we are developing, we need to make sure there is a good user experience because we have mobile, we have portals and then digital footprint across gadgets that we talk about. So user experience and the span of user is very
Right.
important. So UX is another place with the React and everything coming in. So it made that much easier full stack developer. Of course, our basic tech stacks being, whether it is a Java or a .NET. Of course, Copilot has come in with the Microsoft that is making developers' job pretty easy. But then, nevertheless, knowing those technology platforms would help. From an architecture standpoint, microservices as an architecture, I think that is going to stay. And then, if people can invest time learning that, and of course, API as a medium, right? As
Yeah.
endpoints that we are trying to develop. So that is going to stay. So these are some of the evergreen ones which are not going to kind of go out of fashion
Mm,
sooner. So if they can start learning and make them relevant, is important. Of course, now cloud being everywhere.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we say cloud first, mobile first, digital first, right? So understanding of cloud, right? What does it offer as the services is important. As I
Mhm,
said, a lot of companies are moving from their own data centers to cloud. So understanding how cloud operates, a multi-cloud approach people are taking, that is important as well. And at the backend side, different databases and data itself is such a big domain to talk about, right? At least to begin with, how this plays out in terms of when you want to develop a application backend when we talk about. So I think learning different types of databases, how they operate is very important.
mhm.
Yeah, I think, as a technologist now, just it's not enough just knowing one, right? So you
Yeah.
will have to connect multiple technology stacks.
Yeah, I think we are moving toward a very generalistic world, right? Where
Yes,
a lot of people will be required to do a lot of things. Not a very specialized role will be created because of obviously AI enabled a lot of things, right? Uh,
correct.
so I think we are moving towards a very generalistic, general role where people will have to do multiple, you have to wear multiple hats, one skill won't be sufficient enough to prove their mettle, because obviously.
Yeah, I mean, see, DevOps was nice to have some time back, but then now it is operationalized. It's must have, right? Creating CI/CD pipelines, and then understanding of all that is required when we talk about cloud, talk about automated deliveries. I think this generation has tougher time in realizing what is actually required. It is not just single tech stack, and I wish it was very simple to kind of look at it. But then, yeah, it's a multifaceted
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, we are almost on time, but would love to, I would love to continue this forever, but because of time constraint, just some parting thoughts. What are the quick advices you want? Obviously, we have touched upon this, but because of AI, because of a lot of things happening, uncertainty around the role of engineering, software engineering, right? A lot of budding engineers, 3 4 years. Obviously, not just budding engineers, but people who are fairly experienced, 6 7. They're also feeling the heat of what's happening in the current world, right? So, what are your few advices to them that yes, uncertain times, but do X, Y, Z, and you will be, surviving this wave or surviving this tsunami of AI. Yeah.
I think what is really required for people to be is flexibility, right? Adopting to change and then changing gears when it really needed. See, we have seen enough ups and downs in the industry itself now, right? So I think industry is in existence in the last 30 35 years, shaping what we have today. Um, Technologies have evolved, changed, and of course, AI coming in will change the face of how we think technology, right? But then what is important for a good engineer or a great engineer is to understand that change and shift gear where it is required, right? Say, for example, if AI and ML is going to change the face of our technology world, but then somebody has to do that,
Right.
right? Somebody has to develop that. It is not going to get developed by itself. So that's where engineers will come into play. I still remember when we started having a conversation of a system administrator getting branded as a cloud administrator, which was not heard of, say, 15 years back. We were still debating how long is it going to take, so how long cloud is going to take, right, to come
Right.
into the mainstream. Within no time, it came into the picture. See,
Mhm.
for all the infrastructure people, all it needed is shifting the gear, start understanding the cloud much in advance so that they can seamlessly transition to that technology, right?
Mhm.
So it is not about anybody or anything coming in and taking over. It is more of the mindset we always talk about. If you sit in your comfortable zone saying that I only know this technology, I'm going to continue, it's not going to take you anywhere, right? So we always talk about technology agnostic people.
Mhm.
That means to say, if I put that person in any technology, as long as you have logical reasoning, aptitude, you should be able to pick it up,
Yeah.
right? It is just a matter of understanding how that is structured and then, language and then, how it is implemented, right? All it takes for any new technology to pick up is that, right? So that's why we look at technology agnostic resources than somebody saying, I'm going to get stuck to microservices as, I'm going to get stuck to database designing for the next 10 15 years. That's not going to work,
Mhm.
right? So anything, anything that changes in the industry, people who are going to survive are the people who anticipate, shift gears, start learning in advance and moving into the next wave of technology,
Right.
right? That needs to be there. And anything, any change will have an impact on the number of people working, jobs, and then, the way industry operates. But then it also creates new jobs,
Yes.
right? It also creates new opportunities, people who can take that up early on. So that is what is required than really looking at, okay, my job is going to go away. But what are you doing as a professional in your career to
Right.
shift that gear? Right. So you need to kind of anticipate that. That's something people need to think towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we haven't never heard about roles such as AI ops or ML ops, right? Now these roles are getting created, right? So it's not just AI is taking away jobs. Obviously, there are a lot of other peripheral jobs that will get created. And obviously, you rightly put, like, anticipate, persistent, and be aware of what's happening around
Yeah,
you. That will
yeah.
be basically a key to your success.
Prompt engineer, for example, for
Mm.
AI/ML, somebody has to train AI/ML, right?
Right.
So somebody has to kind of write those prompts. That itself is a professional, profession and comes to AI/ML. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. I hope people see that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think being aware, being vigilant about what's happening is the key, and
Yeah.
following, and obviously, first of all, thank you so much, Vipashi, for spending an hour with us. It's been an absolute fun conversation. Obviously, for people who are listening to us, I'm getting good reviews, very insightful conversation from these folks as well. So, thank you so much for spending time with us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and yeah, those who have listened, I hope a lot of insights, a lot of inspiration, a lot of key points to take away home. Right? Once again, any parting thoughts, Rupashi, before we
I
sign off?
hope I've simplified, yeah, anything that I can explain because I didn't want to bring in a lot of jargon. But I know, it can be intimidating sometimes to listen to, from the other side of the organizations. Hopefully people can look at how they can shape their career. Take your time, think through, and then see where do you want to invest your time and energy.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, on that note, thank you once again, Rupashi, and all who have come to us. It's been a pleasure. See you again for the next episodes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See ya.
Cheers. Bye.